This time on Gizmo Trains, we scurry along the floor. We solder some wire. I point at some track. And the cats go crazy.
We have began our bench work. This is the first two sections I've made for this main raised area. I have the wood cut here for the third one that will go here. Down on that side, we're going to drop it down and come over. That way we can put some bridges, have a little bit of depth to the layout, have some uniqueness there. Went with 1x4s on the framework here. Before I did 2x4s, but it was a bit heavy, and also it's really hard to find, it seems these days, really good and straight 2x4s. They're just all over the place, warped, twisted. They suck. So this material here seems to be a lot better. Also has nice crisp edges on it, which makes it nice for making the bench work. Using Craig screws, so it's all nice and recessed here, and as well made sure to add all these holes for running wiring throughout. So it'll make everything nice and neat, tucked up underneath the layout. We won't have anything dangling down. And having this all pre-drilled will make things much nicer along the way and not make a mess in here when we're putting all this together. So I think this will be strong enough. We will see, I guess. Then I'm gonna add some additional posts. Right now, these here or to kind of get this built, but I believe I'm gonna put some more right here in the middle, and I may even additionally add some in the center here for additional support. Kind of keep some of this area as open as I can underneath to be able to get under there, of course. But I think if I do that, I'll have plenty of center support. We have it lagged to the wall, so back there, no problems at all. But I think I'll do that. It'll be more than enough support to weight, mainly for me to get up here. It's pretty decent. I'm about 56 to the wall, so for the most part I can reach here, probably get a little stool or something to be able to access while we're building it, of course. And if anything we need to do. What are you doing down there, chunky monkey? And of course I got my best helper Binks here. Yep, he's inspecting all my work, making sure everything's nice and neat.
I don't know. Is it gonna be good? Forgot about Dre?
Y'all know me, still the same OG, but I've been low-key. Low-key, yeah. Hated on by most of these cats with no cheese, no deals and no G's. No G's. No wheels and no keys, no boats, no snowmobiles and no skis. No skis. Mad at me cause I can finally feed the fam with groceries. Got a crib with a studio, it's all full of tracks. Added to the wall full of plaques. Office and the house like trophies. Did y'all think I'ma let my dough freeze? Hope please, better bow down on both knees. Who you think taught you to smoke trees? Who brought you the oldies, Easy E's, Ice Cubes and DOCs? Come on, Snoop D-O double G's and the crew that said fuck the police. Gave you a tape full of dopies to bump in your streets. When your LP's tank, who's the doctor y'all go see? Listen up closely, said Drake turned pop, the firm flop, no sleep. No sleep. So forget y'all if you don't like me, blow steam. Keep on pushing, turn me back to the old me. Nowadays everybody wanna talk like they got something to say, but nothing comes out when they move their lips. Just a bunch of gibberish and folks act like they forgot about it.
So a quick tip when doing your bench work, when you're laying down your plywood on top, always pre-drill your holes. I even have a drill bit with one of the countersinks on it. Not only does this prevent your base wood or the plywood on top from splitting, it also strengthens the bond up to 22% of what I've seen some studies. So that's pretty cool. I got this little quick jig from Lowe's, makes that a lot easier and quicker. So again, has a countersink already on the drill. And so you can drill it, quickly flip it back over, lock it in, and then you complete the job. Another thing is too, I always like to make sure to turn down my torque on my drill so that we don't just keep driving in and split this or anything weird. See? Stops perfectly. Nice little recessed screw. Nice, neat, and tight.
Am I more than you bargained for yet? I've been dying to tell you everything you wanna hear, 'cause that's just who I am this week. Lie in the grass next to the mausoleum. I'm just
We're laying some track. Started off with our double switch from Ross here. Using our track plan, did some measurements off the wall and found where this point should be. Made some marks, got this nice and square to the edges, and secured it to the layout. So far, I'm adding my power leads, which I'm using the Atlas ones because they're pretty nice. Being they're already soldered, nice little pigtail on it. Got a bunch of these at a train show for very cheap too, so that's a really nice bonus. Gonna put these about every 6 to 8 feet. That way I have plenty of supply points for power, hopefully no running issues. Eventually these switch machines I'm gonna change out for some tortoise units underneath, but for now, we'll leave them there just to keep the points steady for testing and all that good stuff. Gonna, for the most part, leave this track loose per se, not gonna screw it down, but maybe once every so often, just so we can make tweaks as needed. And doing something new for this layout. Super elevation, I believe is the right term, for banking the curve. Using some skewers here. Once this bout gets ballasted, you won't be able to see it. I'm gonna cut these and make it nice and neat, so I think that'll make it a little bit nice and realistic looking.
I am speed.
The layout, table, bench work. I'm gonna feel bad once it's full of track and he's not gonna have his running spots again up here, but let him enjoy while he can. So, gonna continue on. Have got the bench work up here all laid out and ready. We are missing some sections on top. It's a bit rainy today, so going to get those cut out once the weather improves, but in the interim, we will continue on laying some track work. Snowy day in the south. It was supposed to be snowpocalypse. Turned out we got maybe 2 inches of sleet. But Binks is all comfy. So this is where we are currently on the layout. We'll start over here in this corner. So bench work will, as we've said before, finish along the wall. We'll come and have a round table in this area. So have our 2 mains here, outside loop, and then the inner loop, which then connects here as a yard access. So we'll be able to pull trains in and out and connect up to the mains. This here is a leader going into the yard section. Have, I don't know, probably a good 20 feet of yard area. And then back here is the inner loop on the other side of it. And then we'll also have the outer loop here. And I'm planning to have it about 8 inches or so back here just to add some more depth and variance to layout so it's not all just flat. Of course, our double crossover will be able to get between the 2 mains. A few of our test cars here checking radii and making sure we have all our clearances. Bridge section here. So we have our Atlas double truss, big boy here again, used to check for clearances. Little Atlas single, and then this one's going to end up being a custom made bridge that I'll do. Maybe kind of thinking maybe like a stone arch or something that I think would look pretty neat. And then down below, I do plan to have like a piece of track that kind of routes through here as a third loop, and we'll kind of have it go underneath the bench work, and then down there will come out. So just a, you know, its own little plan to do like a loop, a switchback loop. So And then as we get along this area, again, there's where we enter the yard. Right here at this switch is between a couple loops, and then we get into the chaos back here. So again, outer loop, and then there's where our outer loop will come out at that 8 inches, 9 inches actually. And then the inner loop here where we do our turnarounds. So we have some 72 and 81. And then here we're gonna have a little 4-way, just a little area. I'm thinking I want to do something like maybe like an auto carrier scene, maybe like unloading area, something like that. A little bit of an industry back here. So, but this will have like a little bridge to come over, and then we'll probably start like a tunnel section about there for this one area of the inner loop, and then maybe in the tunnel somewhere around here-ish. Again, add a little depth, something different, not just all flat, of course. For all my inclines, I decided to go ahead and make my own. Woodland Scenic sells these kits for inclines, but can be a little bit pricey. All this stuff was left over from building the room as far as all the foam. So this is kind of free. Stuff would have been thrown away anyway. Plus, gives me the ability to shape some scenic details in here, little ditches and stuff. I can put little junk and trash in here to make it look nice. But what I did essentially was I started off with some 2.5 inch wide boards, cut it up in incremental pieces as far as varying thicknesses. Started out like 1/8 of an inch all the way up to 1 inch. And then the 1 inch actually matched the 1 inch foam. So then I could stack and make things easier, as you can kind of see how the layers went through here. So far it works out pretty good. Again, a little more time consuming, but gives me roughly a 3% grade. So I think that should work out fine. Train I ran for Christmas, the Lionel Fast Track with the risers and the bridge is actually like 6% over a much shorter run. Engines had no problem pulling any of the longer sets up that. Had like one Berkshire with a bunch of heavyweight cars and box cars and all this stuff, so never any issues. We'll test it, but I think we'll be okay. You can see here some of those pieces I was talking about, various thicknesses that stepped up to kind of give me that nice grade. And with that as well, I can space them out, you know, along certain sections, actually be a little less than that. So I think on average 3, some of these sections actually probably closer to 2.5. So we'll see what happens. Going to go ahead and start doing some wiring. So I thought I'd take a moment to talk about what I'm planning to do. First off, I'd like to say thanks to Sid from Sid's Trains, a few other folks on Discord, as well as Captain Andy. Talked a little bit about what he did and kind of, you know, let's not reinvent the wheel, what works for folks. So, gonna plan to have 2 main power supplies, one for each loop. They're both isolated. As well, we will have various blocks where certain sections are isolated from each other in order to improve troubleshooting and signal strength throughout. So thanks to those guys for talking through some of that stuff. One of the suggestions was use solid core wire. So this stuff is a bit beefier and heavier. This is 12 gauge solid core. So black for our common, and then I got a couple other colors for the various loops for power, just for ease of identification and troubleshooting later on. I will probably keep this yard area just on the inner loop, because realistically, not like we're really driving too many trains there on a very common basis. Should be just fine. I will, the third loop eventually that I plan to have will be on its own. And then I may do, well, I'll say the fourth one, I want to say may, I will keep that just for all the accessories and buildings and lighting and stuff like that. So I think we're going to be just fine on power, because I'm only really realistically going to drive 1 train per loop at any given time. And so it should be more than enough based on my previous experience. So we'll be running all this through the bottom. And then what we will do is cut the insulation at sections as we get to our drops, which, look down here, we've got quite a few. And I try to do the drops about every 8 feet or so. just to keep good constant power throughout the entire thing. So we'll just cut back the insulation and we will just solder into that. And so that should give us a good signal strength and power throughout. It's going to be a pain in the butt. Lots to get under here and crawl around, but that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to get after it. A wiring tech tip. I have two different types of terminated connections here depending on what I'm going to shove this into. So the first one here is a spade connector. The other is a crimped wire ferrule. So if you're going to use something like this, which is pretty common, nice screw terminal strip, be sure to use something like this. Reason being is these stranded wires are very tiny and they can sometimes not get the greatest connection if you just shove it into, wherever you're putting it, as far as like a screw terminal or something like that. This allows you to have a nice solid connection around those, as well gives you the ability to screw down on this nice flat, contact surface and gives you really good continuity. Now for me, I'm using something a little bit different. Just for ease of troubleshooting later on and connections, I'm using a push style terminal strip. And so I don't need the spade type. So cut this one off, strip it back. And then of course, this is what I'm saying as far as that stranded wire, right? Lots of little strands there. So do a little quick twist. And then I have these nice little ferrules that will just simply slide over. Have a special crimper for it. You get this stuff on Amazon relatively cheap these days if you do go this route. And voila, all those strands are in there nice and tight and secure. And then we have a nice solid conductor here to clamp down onto for the push lock. This is an example of the terminal strip I'll be using, just a simple push, and that way you can quickly disconnect something if needed. So simply just push our button down, shove that in, and it is nice and secure. So, yes, the glorious part of layout building. We just get to shimmy our way through all of the tight spaces, doing our wiring, and the fun of trying to do this and record at the same time. But this solid core is actually not as bad as I originally thought, because obviously being solid you have less flexibility. It's not as bad as I thought routing through the holes, because if you can see way down there is the spool, and we're pulling along pretty good. So I'm gonna get off the camera and keep going. Get in your hole. Coming to you live from the floor, we are making connections to the main feeds. With that, I am using a soldering iron, some good solder, of course some wire strippers, and most importantly, safety glasses. Not the most stylish, but working upside down, probably not a great feeling to get hot solder in an eyeball. I don't want to find out what that's like today. Let's take a quick look at sort of the process I'm doing with that. I think soldering is going to give the best connection point, least resistance. Fairly easy to do. Also saves on a lot of materials. Making these connections to the main bus is fairly straightforward. So here we have one of the drops. This is for the inner loop. So I'm going to use the blue wire in my case because this is my inner loop bus. Yellow is the outer loop, and then black is our common. So what's nice about these strippers is I can simply grab here and just separate that insulation. It gives me a nice little spot to wrap that wire and solder it. Same on our common. Take my other strippers here. I like to cut off just the end of where that existing solder joint is. Give myself quite a bit here, be able to wrap around, yet stay away from the insulation to hopefully not melt and burn it too much. Little twist. I'm just going to wrap it around that bus joint that I made. That's the power lead. Now I'm leaving these leads long, and because just in case I need to lift that track around or do anything later, I've got plenty of room to do that. I could shorten these up, but then I really limit any future work or maintenance or anything. Plus, in my experience, it's always good to have a little extra wire. You never know what you might add or do later. And eventually I'll just tuck this up nice. We'll get a little clip or something for that. My solder's gotten a little unruly. No pun intended. Okay, so soldering iron. Just going to take it and kind of just start working around, heating up this joint. This big 20 gauge wire takes a minute to heat up, and we want to make sure both the outer and what we're soldering, this smaller gauge, is heated to melt that solder. So just going to touch it, it's starting to melt, wrap it around. There we go. Starts flowing good. All right. So then I will just take it. Normally you want to let it cool down for a second, but give it a nice little tug. That's nice and solid, so that should be fine. Come back and do it here for our bus connection. Same thing. Just going to heat up around that wire connection, and then just start adding a little bit of solder in. Come to the other side, same thing. Okay, that should be good. Also keep a nice little wet sponge, just to kind of clean that tip afterwards so it doesn't get any contamination, hopefully, on it. Clean off any insulation of that wire I may have hit. Check that joint. Nice and solid. Should be good to go. I am for now leaving these exposed just in case I need to do any repairs or any work. Eventually I'll get some liquid electrical tape, which is essentially just a liquid rubber, brush it on there, that'll seal it up. Won't have to worry about anything touching, coming in contact, or shorting out. So there you go, simple. Here is a quick view of my wiring so far for the power supply. So I mounted it here to the back of our post so I can get to it from the front really easily for a reset for any derailments. Essentially bringing in power here, a couple of press to connect terminal blocks. From there we have our power distributed out. So here's for our outer loop and also our common. And essentially just run it down and about the layout. Of course, over here, come to another connection point, bring that power out and about. Try to keep it somewhat clean on the wiring, but you know, you're always going to have some crisscrossing and stuff going on. But I finished wiring the two main loops as far as power and common. I did tie the loops together in common, have two separate power supplies, one for each main loop. So let's do a quick test. This is exciting. First time to run a locomotive on here. I'm going to give this Florida East Coast ES44 a shot. We do have our base 3 connected to our gray outlets, which is going to be for our main switch here. It'll turn on our base along with our two power supplies and one flip of the switch. And then my black outlet there, I have going to the common, which on the other side of the wall is going to common for the layout. So let's see what happens. Good sign, power up there. Some lights on the locomotive. Let's give our controller a boot up. ES44. All right, looking good. Let's crank her up and let it go around the loop and see how it looks. So far, so good. Nothing's cutting out as far as sounds, smooth movements. Huge milestone. You can also take an opportunity to see how the signal strength is over here with the controller. And while it comes around, we have a very temporary setup here. That's our signal wire. Eventually I'm going to clean all that up, make it nice and neat. But gets the job done for now for testing. Man, the sounds are amazing with this little bit of echo in here. Really amplifies it. Coming up that 3.5% grade. No issues for that mighty Lion LES 44. So no issues here with the signals. Very responsive. That's awesome. Go ahead and stop it. What I was going to say is my intrusive thoughts is just crank it up full speed and blast through that barrier, but maybe a little pricey. But awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'm going to continue to run this around a little bit, check all these other sections. I have not yet wired in the yard. I need to get some switches. Right now we are first day after a pretty good sized ice storm here, so going to be a few days before I can venture out and grab any of that. But I think I am going to build a auto rack or container intermodal train, get some weight behind that, test that incline, maybe just run around a little bit. But whoo, super, super awesome. Really cool to finally get to a point of a payoff here and see an engine actually roll around on the track. So that's going to be it for this layout update video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing some of the progress we made. Lots of trains up here, slowly filling up our shelves. I don't know if I showed off my cool blue couch and octopus before, but I really dig it. I don't know, with those port windows, which pretty bright right now. Man, it just looks like there's nothing in there. I promise there's windows in there. But again, thanks for watching. If you enjoy what you see, consider subscribing, give the video a thumbs up, you know, all that normal YouTube jazz. But again, lots and lots left to do. We still have to, of course, finish our loop back there, get our round table installed. And then, of course, comes the other huge job of scenery and all the accessories and joys and fun. So stay tuned if you want to keep seeing the updates and the progress. And until next time, bye-bye.